Russian literature occupies an important place in the world history. Its literary palette is rich with varied hues of its culture, socio-historical aspects, and it is also a collage of amazing insights of human psyche. Yes, I am referring to a great novel called A Hero of Our Time. Now let's look into some details of this novel in our introduction. A Hero of Our Time is the first novel in prose in Russian literature. A.S. Pushkin's Eugene Onegin was the first realistic Russian novel in verse. Interestingly, both these novels were published within a span of 10 years and the protagonists seem similar to each other. That's an interesting part here. A Hero of Our Time is the first socio-psychological and philosophical novel. Let me repeat, here the novelist has emphasized on two important elements, that is, it is related to psychology and philosophy. Hence, it is termed as psychological and philosophical novel. When the critics noted that it is the biography of Lermontov himself, the author wrote an introduction to the second edition of A Hero saying that, what? Very interesting statement. A hero of our time, my dear readers, is exactly the portrait, but not that of any particular person. It is the portrait made from the sins in their fully developed form of our whole generation. You will again say that a person can't be that bad, and I'll tell you that if you believe in the existence of all tragic and romantic villains, why don't you believe in the reality of Pechorin? If you are fascinated by more repulsive and horrible imagination, why doesn't this character deserve mercy from you? Is it because there is much more truth in him than what you expected? So many questions to ponder on. Let's answer these questions or try to answer these questions in the coming modules. Lermontov is the Russian author of this great novel, and everything that Mikhail Yuryevich Lermontov did could be expressed in just one word: incomplete. Born in 1814, Mikhail Yuryevich lost his mother when he was just 3 years old. In 1828, he took admission in the famous pension noble attached to Moscow University and started working on his famous poem, The Demon. In 1830, he left the school and joined the Department of Politics of Moscow University. He lost his father in 1831, left the university in 1832, obviously without completing any course, and joined the School of Cavalry Cadets. He, however, completed the school and was taken into the Regiment of Hussars in 1834. In 1837, he wrote the poem Death of a Poet, which was based on the circumstances leading to Pushkin's death. The poem brought him fame, but he was arrested and exiled to the Caucasus. He came back to Moscow in 1838. In 1839 was published his long poem, The Demon, and in 1840, A Hero of Our Time. After his duel with Barent, he was again sent to Caucasus. His book of verses came out in 1840. Lermontov, the author of this novel, was killed in 1841 in a duel with Martynov. This duel was the result of a conspiracy against him by the officers in the court. Thus, we see that Lermontov lived just for 27 years and could create only one famous novel and one book of verses. Some lesser known prose works connected with the theme of a hero two were written. It's a great tragedy that Lermontov died young, that is at young age of 27. Now let's try to know more about the novel. After reading the novel, you might wonder whether it is a novel or a collection of stories with one common hero, Pechorin. But it is a novel. The arrangement of the chapters in this novel is very interesting. Let's try to know more about this unique way of presenting this novel. The chapters are not placed in chronological order. It is in the form of scads, where there is a narrator, but here even the narrator is not the same. There are multiple narrators. The form of the novel is very interesting. The author meets Maxim Maxymich on the way to Caucasus. Maxim Maxymich tells him about Pechorin and his relationship with another interesting female character, Bella. Then the author himself depicts Maxim Maxymich and his meeting with Pechorin. Here we see Pechorin as a person. The author takes some papers from Maxim Maxymich. It was Pechorin's diary. From here we come to know Pechorin's inner world. The diary consists of 3 chapters. What are they? Taman, Princess Mary and the Fatalist. The action had taken place some 5 years ago. From the introduction to the second part, we come to know that Pechorin is dead. The actual chronological order is as follows. From Petersburg to Caucasus, Pechorin stops for some time at a place called Taman, the first chapter from Pechorin's diary. From Taman, he goes to Pyatigorsk. Kislovodsk kills Grushnitsky in the duel and as punishment is sent to Maxim Maxymich. This chapter is Princess Mary. While in Maxim Maxymich's fort, he goes away for 2 weeks in a Kazakh hutment, meets Vulich and predicts that the farmer is going to die on that very day. This chapter is named as The Fatalist. At Maxim Maxymich's fort, he sees Bella, abducts her and she is killed by Kazbich. This chapter is called as Bella. Finally, after 5 years, by chance, he meets Maxim Maxymich and goes to Persia, and while returning from Persia, he dies on the way. Why did Lermontov present the chapters in a haphazard way? Maybe he wanted to give a more mysterious shade to the protagonist. Pechorin is at the center of all these events. The chapters are named according to the incidents that happened to him at different places or respect to different people. Now let's look into the short summary of each chapter. The first chapter which we are going to have a look at is Bella. Bella was a 15-year-old beautiful daughter of a Cherkess chieftain whose hutment was near the fort where Maxim Maxymich and Pechorin were posted. Once they were invited to attend the marriage of the chief elder daughter. Pechorin is taken aback by Bella's beauty and wants to get her at any cost. The chief has a son whose name is Azmat, a spoilt lad. Azmat wants to have Kazbich's horse, but Kazbich won't part with his horse at any cost. That horse is maybe very dear to him. Azmat tells him that he would get him Bella, but Kazbich doesn't agree. Pechorin comes to know of this conversation and he makes a plan. What was that plan? He promises to get Kazbich's horse for Azmat and he wants his sister Bella in return. After a few days, when Kazbich comes to the fort to sell some sheep and honey and ties his horse near the gate of the forest, it is taken away. Maxymich chases the thief but cannot catch him. He has left the place and disappeared. Bella, with her hands tied and mouth gorged, is brought to Pechorin. When Maxymich calls for an explanation, Pechorin simply says that he got Bella abducted because he likes her. Slowly, Bella too starts liking him. They are happy, but soon Pechorin loses interest in her. In fact, nothing could please him forever. He had a very fickle mind, a hopping mind. Maxymich once spots Bella in the fort. He has dreamt of marrying her, but as she is now with somebody else and doesn't love him, he looks for an opportunity, and when Pechorin has gone out, shoots her with an arrow. Bella dies in a great agony. Pechorin too is sad, but he cannot remain sad for long. He is sick for a long time and leaves the place. The second chapter is all about Maxymich. Here, the author again meets Maxymich unexpectedly. He has been staying in a hotel in Vladikavkaz when Maxymich too comes and halts there for the night. Soon, a very attractive carriage comes to the hotel and they are told that it belongs to Pechorin, who is going to spend night with an acquaintance and will go further in the morning. Maxymich is deeply delighted that he would again meet Pechorin after 5 years. He sends word to Pechorin that he expects to meet him in the morning. Pechorin comes in the morning. The author comes to know how Pechorin looks, about his inner turmoil and his dissatisfaction with everything he has come to know in Bella. The narration is moving in a strange way from inner to outer world and not as per the accepted norms of moving from outer to the inner world. Pechorin meets Maxymich very coldly. There is no warmth in the meeting. The old man even feels insulted. Soon, Pechorin leaves, leaving Maxymich in a very bad and bitter mood. It is here that he hands over Pechorin's diary to the author saying, after all, who is he to me? Why should I bother about his belongings? You do whatever you like with it. While reading these notes, the author is convinced of Pechorin's sincerity because he mercilessly puts forth his weaknesses and sins. History of a man's soul, he says, no matter how small, is not less interesting and useful than the history of a whole nation, especially when it is the result of the observations of an intelligent mind of himself. When it is written without any ambition for fame or surprise, it deserves to be read. Hence, he decides to publish them. Another interesting and third chapter from Pechorin's diary is Taman. Taman, an episode from Pechorin's journal, steeped in demonic and particularly romantic imagery, tells the story of 2 nights spent by the hero in the seaside fishing town of Taman. Pechorin arrives in Taman late one night with his Cossack batman and is taken to a hut right by the sea. Here, he is met by a young blind boy who tells him that the mistress of the house is away. Both Pechorin and his man settle down to sleep, but the former is restless, and an hour or so later, seeing the blind boy go past outside with a bundle, he decides to follow him at a distance. The boy goes easily across the rocks to the beach where he meets a woman. Shortly afterwards, a solitary oarsman in a small boat approaches on the almost impossibly rough sea and lands by the boy and woman. All three then lift heavy bundles out of the boat and walk off. Pechorin returns to the hut in a very uneasy way. The next morning, Pechorin is told by the commandant of the town's fort that it may be 3 days until he can get a boat out of the town. Pechorin's Cossack then tells how he met a friend who repeated the verdict that their lodgings were unwholesome and expressed doubts and fears about the blind boy and the woman of the house. Returning to the house, they find the boy and old woman, but when Pechorin asks the boy and the old woman that he had been doing the night before, he bursts into tears and denies any knowledge, and Pechorin is rebuked by the woman for picking on him. Sitting outside the house, later, Pechorin sees a girl singing on the roof of the house and seems to recognize the voice from the beach the night before. The girl hangs round the hero all day and tells him to meet her on the beach after everyone is asleep. He does so and they get into a small boat. She embraces him again, but throws his pistol overboard as she does so and then tries to throw him in after it. However, Pechorin manages to overpower her and throw her in. He then rows half an hour back to the shore. While returning to the hut, he sees the girl who has also made it to the land. Shortly afterwards, the boy and the boatman, Yanko, appear. What is the name of the boatman? Yanko. Yanko takes the girl off in the boat with him and tells the boy that he does not care what he does to look after himself now. The boy sits and cries, and Pechorin returns to the hut to find that his box, sabri and dagger have been stolen, presumably by the boy to give it to Yanko. That morning, a ship arrives in the harbour and Pechorin leaves Taman gladly. Let's try to know about one more interesting chapter called Princess Mary. This is a very long and complicated chapter. We came to know about the complex nature of Pechorin from his own words in this chapter. The action takes place between 11th May and 16th June. Let's see the relationship between the different characters. Pechorin loved Vera intensely, but due to her poverty, she marries an old wealthy man. Mary and her mother came to Pyatigorsk for treatment at the mineral waters, and Mary is a distant relative of Vera. In Kislovodsk, another nearby health resort, she stays in a house behind Mary's. Grushnitsky, a former army colleague of Pechorin, too arrives there. There is the kind doctor Werner serving at Pyatigorsk. Now the stage is set. Let's see how the action unfolds in an interesting way. Grushnitsky loves Mary. She too seems interested in him till Pechorin tries to attract her towards him. He is asked by Vera to be friendly with Mary and her mother and visit their place so that she can meet him there. Grushnitsky notes that Mary is slipping out of his grip and is leaning towards Pechorin. They plan to insult Mary in the club. Pechorin saves her and Mary expresses her love for Pechorin, but he doesn't respond. They shift to Kislovodsk. Pechorin goes to see Vera at night. The entry to her house is from the gate, which is common for Mary's and Vera's flats. Grushnitsky, who is following Pechorin everywhere, spreads the rumor that Pechorin had gone to see Mary the previous night and spent a few hours with her. A duel has to take place as Grushnitsky refuses to take his words back and Pechorin insists that his charges are baseless. We know that they are. Grushnitsky's friends chalk out a plan. They decide to load only Grushnitsky's pistol so that there is no danger to his life and Pechorin will be made a fool. But Pechorin comes to know of this plan and after Grushnitsky's chance to fire at him, demands that the pistol is reloaded. Grushnitsky is killed in the duel. When he is returning, he sees Vera leaving the place in her carriage. Her husband has come to know about her affair with Pechorin. Mary too comes to know that he doesn't love her but is simply playing with her feelings. Grushnitsky is already killed. Pechorin's horse too collapses and dies on the way back home, and it is here that Pechorin completely breaks down. A very important point to the whole novel is the Fatalist. Pechorin was spending a couple of weeks in the infantry regiment stationed in a Caucasian Kazakh village. Once they were playing cards at one of the officers' house. Lieutenant Vulich bets with Pechorin, who claims that there is no such thing as predestination and it is not true that everyone has his manner and hour of death predestined. Vulich takes a pistol from the wall and primes it. Pechorin, believing that one can see in a man's face when his time has come, says to him, "You are going to die today." But when Vulich puts the gun to his head and pulls the trigger, nothing happens. He then fires it again at a cap and it goes off. Pechorin then says that he now believes in predestination. As Pechorin is walking home later and the others have dispersed, he finds a pig sliced in half on the road, which he finds out has been cut up by a drunken Cossack. He returns to his lodging but is woken at 4 to be told that the same drunken Cossack had killed Vulich in the street at random, almost slicing him in half, thus fulfilling Pechorin's unwitting prophecy. Now let's analyze this great novel to know some more details. Lermontov describes Pechorin from various angles. What are those? From the point of view of simple people like Maxim, Maxymich and Bella, he was a strange person full of controversies. He would be friendly with them for some time and could be cruel to them as well. The narrator finds him to be a person of medium height, slender, with wide shoulders and well built, truly a handsome personality. He seems capable of facing all the hassles of life. He had a very aristocratic appearance. His moves are careless and lazy, but he does not make the gesture of waving his hands about, and there is a sure mark of some secrecy of his character. His interaction with mean people like Grushnitsky and the society that had gathered at the health spa indicates that he liked to show off. He was a liar, cruel, and was capable of killing people just with words. Then comes his self-assessment, which is very important for every human being. He says that he was a person who was not properly understood, a tragic figure, served like an instrument in the hands of fate to kill people. His best qualities were not appreciated and so he had to hide them. He considers himself to be a person with dual personality, one who laughs in public and other who simultaneously cries in the heart. His heart is divided into two parts. one which is ready to serve others and the other which doesn't hesitate to harm others. Now look at the contrast. Even when he loved, his love didn't bring any joy to anyone. Often he served as a hammer to fall on the unsuspecting object of his love. Only two people could understand him properly, Vera and Dr. Warner. Now, another important aspect of this novel is the way the author depicted his women characters. Women are depicted as incentives, objects of desire by Lermontov. Pechorin looks at them as just a means to kill boredom. He is fed up of them, he can't love them. There are three women, Vera, Mary and Bella. Pechorin had loved Vera but could not marry her. He used Mary to meet Vera, but he seduces Bella as she looked fresh but gets bored in a short time. The women too are not bold and beautiful and intelligent like Pushkin's women. There is another interesting dimension which opens up in this novel, that is Pechorin as the extra man. He is one such man and a true representative of the young generation of his class, who was extremely talented, very intelligent and had a feeling that he has to perform a great task but was not allowed to take it up. He was not trusted. Trust is a very big thing. He felt humiliated and hence retreats into the background. Like Chatsky of Woe from Wit and Eugene of Eugene Onegin, he too vanished without leaving any mark on the society. Such young men, a new entrant in Russian literature, was called a superfluous or an extra man. Society could not make use of their talent and they had to vanish from the scene. Language and style plays a vital role in projecting the right image or an impressive image of any literary piece. The prose style used by Lermontov for the novel is less simple, perhaps, than that of Pushkin, while still preserving great flexibility within a disciplined writing style. Lermontov shows mastery of varied registers, from the romantic descriptive terms of his images of the stunning Caucasian mountainscapes to the cold, ironical detachment of Pechorin's descriptions of himself and others, to the simple speech of Maxymich. This later style, which was to later be employed by authors such as Alexander Solzhenitsyn to great effect, and it popularly came to be known as skaz. When we look at this whole novel, we come across simple characters, we come across complicated characters, and these characters also help us to assess our own personality and then also help us to understand who we are and where we stand. Hope you enjoyed this great novel by Lermontov. Thank you.